Going from a basic discovery made in a lab to actually testing that idea in humans, in people, that is to say in an FDA, a clinical trial, takes literally decades. And what can move this forward much faster is if you have an institution with departments that can help facilitate that process, that can step in with the various regulatory things that need to be done to get into human work. So the process begins with basic science. The lead researcher who's heading up the lab needs to sit down with their team and discuss how they're going to attack this problem in human disease.
Basic science is the study of the normal processes of cells. And when we understand this normal function, we can have ideas about what might be perturbed in a particular disease state.
And that hopefully can lead to a therapeutic approach, that may be a small molecule inhibitor that can stop some pathway from going forward and keep the disease from happening.
When we identify a therapeutic target, we need to determine how we want to intervene and alter the function of that molecule or the interaction between two cells. And then we can test these in various systems to see if they actually do what we expect they'll do.
So what happens then is the scientist will meet ideally with a medicinal chemist, that is, a person who thinks about the structures and who can synthetically make things in shapes that will intervene in a pathway.
Medicinal chemistry is working on molecules and a bunch of molecules where you keep making minor modification till you get the best tuning of the molecule to fit into a specific pocket of a target that is related to a disease and leading to an intervention or interruption of that protein function.
And hopefully that process will then lead to the drug candidate, that is to say, a molecule that may actually work in human trials. So having found a drug candidate, the next step is done in the Office of Technology Transfer, where an intellectual property position is developed. That is to say, you need to protect this idea to bring revenue to the institution, but also to interest the larger pharmaceutical companies that are ultimately going to be the ones that take this forward into the larger clinical trials.
In medical research, intellectual property rights are critically important because in order to bring a clinical discovery into clinical service, for instance, the discovery of a new drug, that's going to require an investment of several $100 million in order to clear FDA validation trials, clinical trials, and secure approval for the new pharmaceutical. No pharmaceutical company is able to make that kind of investment unless there's protection or a monopoly in the marketplace. And that's what a patent is. It's a time-limited monopoly in the marketplace for your new invention or your new discovery.
Once you have the intellectual property, you then need to get what I call translational funding. That is to say, how do you go from that basic science discovery to translate it into work into humans, to see if it works therapeutically and to see if it's safe? So translational funding is done by writing a grant. And in order to write that grant appropriately to get into the human work, we need to involve the biostatistics unit.
The biostatistics unit helps scientists and clinical researchers design scientific and research studies to analyze and describe the data that comes from those research studies and to help interpret the research data to determine whether the hypotheses that the investigator stated are correct or not.
So now we've developed a grant application with the help of the biostatistics unit, and they've helped us design this trial that's going to have enough people to actually get the answer that we need. And then the process moves to another department which is the Grants Management Office.
The Grants Management Office is here to protect the investigators in the institution from any risks that come along with bringing in money from outside sponsors. Usually, when we bring in money from outside, the sponsors want to have some say or some report or some idea of what's going on with that money when it's here.
So we need to get the funding to do this trial, and the grants management team is going to help us do that, to be sure that the budget that we've outlined is going to be able to do the work that we want to do, and is going to include the overhead and all the other things that the Institute needs to see to be there. Another key department that needs to be consulted when you're doing human work is something called an IRB, which is an Institutional Review Board.
All clinical trials need to have IRB approval before they begin. That's a federal regulation. So what an IRB does is they review the research and they can help the investigators to assure that the studies are being conducted in compliance with regulations, that consent is being obtained adequately, and that all the human research subjects are being protected and that their rights and welfare are being protected to assure their safety.
As you might imagine, when you start doing research on humans, there's a lot more paperwork involved, and it's a good thing because we want to protect the individuals, the subjects that are coming into these trials. And that's helped move forward by the clinical research services.
So we aim to raise awareness and participation into research studies. Participation can vary. It could involve just completing a questionnaire, providing blood, a telephone interview, and at times, of course, it can involve the testing of an investigational drug or a device.
We then lead to the FDA clinical trial. The starting of the clinical trial, to me, is what's really, really exciting. Here you're actually testing this idea in humans, and this is incredibly rewarding for all of the team. And hopefully we can help those individuals that have this disease and change the way medicine is practiced. So after all these steps that took this idea in basic science and moved it through all these different departments, and to have these individuals, these key people, and all of these departments under one roof is what makes this move forward as efficiently as possible.